Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Hearth Bound, the boozy book club podcast adventure of three lifelong friends attempting to stumble their way through the pages of epic book series, all while celebrating each unintentional guttural sound with the swig of their smoothest Smithwicks. My name is Matt Mullen and I am one of three off-brand musketeers responsible for hosting the show. I'm accompanied by Lou Chapman and Sean Martz, the Mad Hatter and March Hare to my Alice-like curiosity of drinking things from small, persuasive, unmarked bottles. We kick off our first episode of the season by shaking off the holiday rust and jumping into the first couple of sections of Dune, the first book of the Dune series. We were pretty excited to get back to recording and starting a new book. So excited that we ended up having to split our 2.5-hour discussion on the first 4 sections into 2 separate episodes. And before we get started, I would like to give a very special shout out and warm Hearthbound welcome to our newest patron, Leah Vita. And because she joined the Fireside Fanatic Guild on Patreon, I've written a little something extra for the shout out. Enjoy. So the story of Leah Vita of Bluewick is a tale not meant for the faint of heart, for it is rumored that she possessed powers unknown to even the greatest of wizards, unwritten in ancient text or scroll. She is believed to be the very balance of life, death, prosperity, and destruction. Her dark magic, often disguised as enchantments and charms, while dazzling as they were to kings they were cast, led to the inevitable fall of those noble houses. Entire armies reduced to lambs in a great slaughter. Her climactic historical scheme would forever be remembered as the Blood Red Night. According to legend, a king, desperate for power and influence, sought out Leah's aid on the eve of battle. Just as the sun turned its back on the summer sky, through frustrated negotiation, he arrived at a final offer. He promised the hand of his son in exchange for ensuring the victory in this approaching, unwinnable battle. She agreed and enchanted every sword, spear, and breastplate with the most diabolical spell. Any weapon laid upon the king or his men would instead pierce the wielder. Any harm inflicted instead wounded the inflictor. But to her betrayal, she found that the king had promised her the hand of his youngest son. No real power, no real claim to the throne, a decision that would be his last. As the king and his men charged with fire in their hearts towards the opposing soldiers, their confidence was quickly diminished as their once unstoppable weapons and armor were reduced to ash before their freshly fear-filled eyes, leaving them defenseless against the onslaught, bathing in the moonlight. Leah Vita of Bluewick would go on to claim the hand of the youngest son and is believed to wear it around her neck as a reminder of the betrayal of nobility and the selfishness of man. Yeesh, that got pretty spooky pretty quick. Hope you enjoyed it, Leah. Cheers. And speaking of cheers, we have a podcast to start. So without further delay, grab yourself a seat, a pint, and your trustiest wand, and don't forget to swish and flick, because this is Hearthbound. Yes! We have... It is so loud in my headphones. But it makes me feel great. We got Lou, he's air drumming. Sean's removed his headphones. Lou is both air drumming and air guitaring. All is well. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, boys. We are back. Welcome into season 2 of Hearthbound. Holy shit, guys. I mean, did the holidays just, fly by for you guys? I mean, I was up there, so we were all there together. But, it was 2 weeks of just nonstop chaos, right?
No, I literally still have my Christmas tree up with Lou's head at the top still. We're going to be those people who wait till, the very last minute of the very last day and be like, are we going to be February Christmas tree people or no?
Oh, you were the February Christmasers. Okay.
No, it's kind of a tradition.
January 2021 hit, everything came down. That single day, it was a one-day event. It was an hour-long event, and we went out and we got storage boxes.
Just like
and the
a
whole
Christmas
shebang.
purge.
It's exactly what it
out
was.
with old Saint Nick.
Just need the purge siren to go off as you walk into your apartment. Yeah, it's kind of a
gosh.
tradition over here at the Chapman household. We get back from the trip up in Ohio, and everything goes. Nothing sticks around. As soon as we get in, we unpack, we clean everything up. Next day, wake up, Christmas is gone. It is.
Yeah, that's weird.
January.
I feel like I'm more in the holiday spirit after the holidays. Like the tree's up, it's like grown on me. I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be our normal decor in this room. Like, welcome to our Christmas room. This is where we still praise Santa and all that good stuff. There's still an unopened present. Okay, there's no unopened present, but I consider it. When I was little, I totally did that. I kept one gift until like the end of school break to kind of remedy that gut feeling of going back to school. I had that one unopened gift, and I would open it just to make myself feel better. But when it was something dumb, it was like the worst day. Like, you open that gift you've been waiting to open to make you feel better. Socks.
Yeah, socks. Oh,
Underwear.
gosh.
You're just like,
That
damn
doesn't-
it.
Matt, I respect leaving the Christmas tree up year round. It's the Christmas decorations, right? So if you have a tree in your living room, people are like, oh, you're plant people. Okay, that's fine. But if you have a Christmas tree with like lights and Christmas ornaments on it, you're like, oh, you're just lazy and don't take down your Christmas decorations.
So would
Okay,
it be
so-
like super hipster to just keep an undecorated Christmas tree up year round?
Yes.
Just put it in a pot, like no tree skirt, just, yeah, that's my Christmas tree.
Moy
man.
hipster.
That would be more
Moy
hipster.
hipster.
But here, then that raises the question: what plant can you have with lights on year round that isn't Christmassy?
They probably just have to be like twinkle
I feel
lights.
like lights on a plant, not Christmas time, is kind of trashy.
Okay.
Just isn't. It's not.
Hot
a thing.
take.
I mean,
Hot
I'll
take.
buy wrong,
I would say that's a pretty
but it's a
spicy
little
take.
bit, right?
That's funny. But alas, we are back. Christmas be damned. New Year's be damned. We are going to make podcasts.
Third chair, I want you to know that Lou actually says "alas" like in normal conversation. It's not just
Yeah,
a podcast
he didn't wait
term
for
to
nerdy
use.
podcast language. You know, like he hasn't been holding this out for 2 weeks. This is normal.
Yeah.
Normal vocab.
This is if we're in a basement drinking, he'll throw out an alas anytime.
Hey, you can always crowbar one of those in conversations. I feel like that needs to be put back in normal conversation. Just like calling people by their last name, Mr. Martz, Mr. Mullen. Like, we used to do that in high school all the time, and people would look at
We
us
did that
funny.
fortnightly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people would look at us funny, but I think that's, I don't know, it's normal.
I mean, people look at us funny, I think, regardless.
Yeah, I guess
Just
that's
like,
kind of... Okay, getting on with the topic. We have been drinking a little bit here, in case you haven't noticed, but we are very, very excited to start reading again. It has been far too long. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't picked up a book since we put down The Witcher, and we have gone to the Twitters, and we've gone to our fans.
Really?
I have not. And we have decided... or better yet, our fans have decided that the three of us should embark on the journey that is known as the Book of Dune. And for those that aren't familiar, it's a kind of post-apocalyptic, set in the future, multi-planet, lots of different factions, sci-fi thriller. And it's about to be a movie. I think they're releasing it this year, right? Isn't that what HBO said? That they're going to release it sometime during 2021?
I think
Is it an HBO movie?
I think there's been a lot of conflict with that. Like, I've been trying not to watch the trailers, but they're just so cool. Like,
They are awesome.
reading the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is in the trailer. Oh my gosh, this is in the trailer. Like, it looks like it's going to be a good
I know
movie.
we've only read as currently recording, we've only read maybe like the first 3 sections, and I've already seen something in the trailer in the book, or
Yeah.
vice versa.
I haven't seen the trailers at all.
Then don't.
It is
Just-
don't do it yet.
Do,
but
but don't.
they take a cover of like a children's choir singing. I think it's "Us and Them" by Pink Floyd, and it
Oh,
is
God.
so sublime. It is just so
It's
perfect,
epic, man.
Yeah. But anyway, so that is the book we're about to start reading. And like I said, we have started a few chapters in, and we're excited to talk about it. But I kind of wanted to clear a few things up. In case this is your first ever Hearth Bound podcast, welcome. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you have made it this far. We're only 10 minutes in, and I'm just now welcoming you. That's pretty typical of us. We drink a little bit, then we hit the record button, and we continue to drink, and we talk some more. And it's a kind of a vicious cycle. But by the end of it, hopefully you've enjoyed our conversation about the book, and you kind of want to listen again. And this season 2, we are going to be covering the first book in the book of Dune. And we've kind of decided collectively that the whole book of Dune is kind of large. I think it's like 800 pages, 900 pages, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's broken down. I mean, the version I got is the deluxe version, which, by the way, has the coolest cover, I think, out of all of the versions.
Check the Instagram.
It's awesome, yeah. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely head over there. Like I don't want to describe it because I just want you to visit our Instagram. But anyway, each book is broken down, not into chapters, which is going to be hard for us because we like numbered chapters. But the way it's broken down so far is really cool. We'll get into that. But there are multiple books within the book. This version that I have just kind of smashed them all together in one massive book. But we are only covering book 1 which is called Dune.
Yes. So just to clear that out and get that out here, so much like we did with the Witcher series, we're going to try to break the books down into smaller, or the stories down into smaller books so that we can cover a multitude of stories quickly, and we're not, becoming a whole Witcher podcast or a whole Dune podcast. We're going to try to keep things short, and then we'll revisit them eventually at some other point. If you want us to go to the next Dune book, follow us on Twitter. When the time comes, we'll put the poll out, and you better vote for the next Dune book.
Yeah, and at the same time, if you haven't heard kind of how the show works, definitely check out season 1 of like when we go through The Witcher. I mean, it's just a bunch of friends that got together, all willy-nilly, doing a podcast, and then we really enjoyed what we were doing. So, I mean, it's essentially as if, at least the way that my future wife describes it, is if you walked into a bar and you heard some old friends get together in a drunken rage talking about a book as if they had their own little book club, and it just makes you want to sit down across from them and just listen to these idiots talk. That's almost word for word what she said. I was like, why don't you write a review?
She is yet to do that, I'm pretty sure. But anyway.
Yeah.
No, she was, I think she was our first review, at least on iTunes.
Thank you, Caitlin. You are so nice. We don't deserve you. Matt
right.
doesn't deserve you.
Oh, wow.
But
okay.
to be explicit about this, then, what we're saying is Dune, the first book of the Dune saga, is actually a collection of 3 books. And what we're going to do is read the first of those 3 books.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is called Dune.
Sips beer. It's like math.
Yeah. I think we just did algebra, which I think is a drinking rule. I don't know. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. New listeners, we drink a lot. I don't know if we covered that, but you have drinking rules too. So unless you're driving or legally or bound by some type of health obligation, you have to drink with us.
Crack one open.
So,
and there are like
you're welcome, and I'm sorry.
Both spoken and unspoken rules. I think we just kind of make them on the fly, and you will hear somebody pepper in the word
correct.
drink at some point, and that is your cue as well as our cue to take a sip of whatever it is that you got in your cup. So I am so stoked to get started. There's a lot going on, a lot of big words that I had a hard time. I had to read 4 or 5 times, and I tried to say it, and I was tempted to Google it, but I thought it'd be way more fun to just wing it live, or kind of live.
First word is Frank, and the second word is Herbert. He's the author.
Those are real difficult for Sean.
Thank God he's here. All right.
I just want to talk about the author real quick. It looks like this is his best-known book. So this, he's a science fiction author. That's his genre. So it kind of Ray Bradbury kind of feel to it.
For sure.
And so Dune is basically his life's work.
It's his baby,
seems
man.
like he passed away in 1986 at the age of 65. So he is no longer with us. But I mean, this is like before like computers became a thing. When did iRobot happen? Who wrote iRobot? When was that release date?
I don't know.
That was Asimov, right?
You know
that
more
was
than
a book.
Asimov.
Yeah, I thought it was just Will Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith. Yeah. 1950. Okay,
I
so this
did
was
not
after
murder him.
iRobot got written. So this is like the 50s, 60s, like that whole animatronic human cyborg merge
Well, it's just
thing was happening.
a really popular idea to think about the future in these types of ways. Keeping that in mind, some very comedic things to me while reading that I'm sure you guys have stumbled upon drinking already. Stumbled upon already. But once we get into it, I'm going to point those things out. But I definitely feel the age of it, of the text so far, but I also find it still pretty relevant. A lot of the things that are going on, we're going to try, and I do emphasize the word try, to connect those to what's going on in the real world with us right now. But let's just jump into it, because I'm like so tempted to just start talking about things.
Go for it. Let's go.
All right, so beyond the awesome cover, once I got past the glory of that, we jump right into chapter 1. Sean, you're usually our recap guy. I don't want to steal your thunder. Did you want to do a quick recap of the first? We'll call it a chapter or a section, whatever is comfortable for you, because it's not actually numbered.
Yeah, I'm not prepared. I can do it live though. We're gonna Bill O'Reilly this. We'll do it live.
That's what he said. He was successful.
Yeah. So the first one it's really almost an introduction chapter. It's a hard introduction, right? They don't ease into anything. You start out really hard. All of the terms are laid out right in front of you. I went crazy. I have 3 different colors of highlighters on my book to recognize, like, okay, is this a real vocab word? Is this like a book vocab? What is going on? But we start out, we meet this boy named Paul, and there's his mother and this woman are watching him sleep, and they're talking about him. And they're talking about him really weird. We find out that his mother is a duke's concubine. And that was a vocab word for me. Concubine is, I did know it, but like I knew it through context. I've never read the definition of it. And the definition of it was really boring. It was just mistress.
Oh, that's dumb.
And I was like, well, that's, like, I like the word concubine so much better.
There were some words where I kind of pulled, like in last season, Lou's just like, sometimes I hear a word, but I heard it in context. I don't know what it means, but I put all the pieces together and just kind of blow through it. But concubine was one that, like, I had the same look as Lou. I was like, I think I know what that means. But then I get that feeling of like, I'm doubting myself because all these people are like appearing to be royalty. Like they're in a castle, but this is in the future. Not what does concubine mean to them, but it's like, I don't know. I'm like psyching myself out early with the vocab words because I didn't know if it was too early to jump the gun, but I'm right there with you.
I don't think it's too early to jump the gun, but we find out there's a bunch of different characters that get introduced here. And I don't want to get into all of them now, but we find out there's the Reverend Mother, there's a Master of Assassins, there's the Duke himself, there's Paul's teacher that we get into, Dr. Yua. But we get into all of this information, and they're having these conversations about Paul while he's sleeping. And then
in this section too, if you don't mind me kind of hopping in.
Yeah. Please help.
Paul is just, to me, immediately this kind of, I got all kinds of vibes from actually The Witcher. I had some Harry Potter vibes as well, because you got to keep in mind that Paul is a 15-year-old prince that you find out. He's just like technically, he has like a claim to the Duke's, he's an heir, but he's like a child of a mistress, but you find out that this mistress belongs to this really cool group, which we learn about later. But this old woman, Paul recognizes her, but he doesn't know how he recognizes her. So Paul's got immediately from the get-go all these like weird intuition, like all these thoughts about the people that he's seeing, like he's seen them before. He's having all these weird dreams, but he's also getting prepared for something. He knows he's going to talk to this woman. He knows he's interacted with her at some time before. So it gave me a lot of creepy vibes off the bat. Paul's kind of creeped out, but he's so innocent, kind of like Harry, where he's totally oblivious that he's meant for something more. And obviously this is just like classic exposition stuff where we're just learning about all the characters, just dropped right into a situation. But I also started to get a lot of like Shakespeare vibes because there's a witch at the beginning. There's this hint of like prophecy that he's having these premonitions of things that haven't happened yet. And then we are leading up to this moment where there is a test. And I don't want to get too far ahead because I have a boatload of notes right from the get-go. So
Boatload of notes as well, Matt.
Same.
the very beginning, they have these little excerpts. So instead of chapters where it's labeled like chapter 1, and then they just get into the text, they just have an excerpt from this. And Lou, you're going to have to save us with all the proper nouns here, but the Manual of Muad'Dib. Is that right?
You got that. Yeah.
Okay, so
Hell
you had
yeah.
that. I had Muad'Dib.
All right.
I mean, they said it
Ballpark.
as like Mob Deed. It's, I mean,
Muad'Dib.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But
all right.
like from the get-go, I was just like, this is a lot like the voice of reason in The Witcher, where they kind of give a hint about what this section is going to be about. At least that's what I thought at first. It kind of gives some context of things that they're going to touch on, but there were things that happened in this chapter. I'm like, okay, that idea is kind of scrapped.
yeah, to give listeners an idea, like, I don't know if anybody's played Skyrim, but like every chapter, like Matt said, starts with like the loading screen little factoid. It's just like random quote from random book that like may help you with the chapter section, whatever we're going to call it, may not, but it's just like, it helps you build the world. And like, it like, and Sean said, it just drops you in it. It gives you all of this. That Paul and his mother Jessica are on planet Caladean, and they belong to the family of Duke Lato.
Paul and Jessica are their names.
Correct.
But there were so many weird,
Yes.
different names in here that I had a note on Paul. I was like, what a boring name.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have the same
Like,
note.
like you had Muad'Dib, you had Arrakis, you had Princess Urulin, and I'm just like,
Paul.
Paul.
No, dude, I thought, okay, so I know a Paul.
Yeah,
But I know a few
shame.
Pauls.
No shame
hold
to
on,
Paul
we love
Camper.
Paul.
No
We love
shame
Paul.
to Paul Camper. We love you, man. But like, you like your name doesn't belong in this book. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Don't worry,
So,
we'll plug
I thought
the
that-
Death Saving Bros podcast. But Paul,
Yes,
we're not
please.
talking about you. But in terms, Sean, I agree with you of like this futuristic aspect. This takes place far in the future on these, these planets out in wherever in the universe. You have no idea, and everyone's got a cool name except for Paul, who's got the most Irish Catholic name. Yeah, and his mom, Jessica. It's like,
Jessica.
I'm glad you brought that up because this is all very biblical.
This is.
There are biblical names. They start talking about generations in here. And I was
Yeah.
like, this feels very biblical. And then a lot of these weird pronouns, the names, the places, they all feel very, to me, Middle Eastern or I guess Levant, somewhere in that area.
oh yeah, for sure.
Sean's out here
And I had
dropping
a
words
note-
that I need vocab noises for.
I just feel like
The
it's going to be a
very first note
continuous
I had
stream
was-
of vocab sounds. Just whoosh.
Oh, it is. But the very first note I had is, I don't know what a Muad'Dib is, but now I really want some shawarma. That is what the first thing that I wrote down in this book.
So to continue on where Sean left us, Paul sleeping in his room, his mom and his witch are watching him sleep. They think he's sleeping. He's not really sleeping. He's listening to him. He falls asleep. He has some strange dreams about caves, water, meeting a girl. And then he wakes up. His mom tells him, hey, we got to go talk to that weird witch that I was just watching you sleep with. She's going to give you a test. As Matt.
Watching her
hold on.
sleep with.
There were
Paul,
tons
you
of
dog.
vocab words. Before we go on,
there-
there were tons of vocab words. Balisette, contralto, ducal. These are all real English words that are a thing. A balisette's like a double clarinet. Contralto is a type of singing voice. And ducal means of or relating to a duke.
Yeah, they are dropping a lot of these fancy, a lot of it. I think the author is just flexing on his vocab, to be
It
honest.
sounds like it.
But this first part, you're introduced to. Obviously, you're getting the vibe for who Paul is, how he's related, or why he matters as a son to Jessica, and how he's related to Leto, I think, or Leo?
Leto.
Duke
Leto? Okay. The Duke. And
I read that like Jared Leto,
yeah.
the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars.
But they also reference in conversations with the mom and this woman, this witch, according to Paul, that there is this like sisterhood known as like the Bene Gesserit. Is that right, Lou?
Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit? No. That was not how I said it.
Bene Gesserit. Bene Gesserit.
I said Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, it's already imprinted in my brain. I'm not going to be able to retrain the way I say it.
So you get a lot of this, like the stress of all the things that are being said in this manual versus the things that Paul is recalling about his mom teaching him as a boy. And now you have this witch or this woman who comes in that the mom is referring to, where is it? As
Your Reverence.
Reverence.
Reverend Mother.
Reverend Mother. And all of these like lessons and things have to do with like some sort of balance. And, you know, you have to have this light to understand, or have to have dark to understand what the light is. But you need to, you know, balance the two. One can't outweigh the other. And you have a bunch of other examples of this being brought up in these lessons. And all of these like quotes and stuff that I pulled out of here were like really impressive, you know, like moral conflicts that people have, and then kind of how they handle them. I just read your chat message. I'm a little drunk. Great. But most importantly...
Hey, man, I had 3 glasses of mead and L on beer, so...
Rock and roll.
Here's where we're at.
I've never heard, though, and this is right when Paul sees this witch for the first time. I don't know if he just wanted to insult her or not, but he refers to her as a bulky woman. I've never heard in my life, my 28 years of living, a woman referred to like, that is one bulky woman. But Paul just like immediately doesn't like her, obviously. So
I put the grimace emoji on that.
Yes.
We find out that Paul his father has a master of assassins.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that for a second?
That is
how freaking cool.
The coolest title of any person. All right, Lou, you're going to be our master of assassins, my dude.
Is the master of assassins...
I object. Lou will not be our master of assassins.
Is the master of assassins an assassin, or is he just an administrator of the assassins?
I don't think you get that title for just being a secretary, Lou. I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, you don't get brought in from the outside. This is a promote from within kind of environment.
And if you are having trouble, listener, following us, this is quite honestly the world that you're dropped into. You're getting a lot of titles of people. This is very Game of Thrones. You're getting a lot of characters. You're getting a lot of where is this? You know where you are in terms of like we're in a castle here. But then the next chapter you're somewhere else with a bunch of other characters, and then you're in another place with other characters going on, you know, interacting, and you're just kind of like dipping into these conversations that they're having. So a lot of words are being used, a lot of characters, a lot of places, and then all of these characters are talking about places and things in the world. So you just kind of have to like drink it all in. So I think, believe it or not, booze or not, we are kind of giving an accurate representation of how this first chapter really just kind of drowns you in the world of Dune. So it's awesome.
Have you guys ever read Clockwork Orange?
Yes.
Or tried to, rather?
Yeah.
Great read. If you haven't read it, go read Clockwork Orange too.
This is kind of what it reminded me of, where you just get thrown into it and you're like, oh, I got to start taking notes.
Just roll with the punches.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
just roll with the punches.
And literally in the conversation with Paul makes his way, you know, they get him up. The mom is like really nervous because like the witch knew that Paul was like awake in his bed listening, even though his eyes were just like slitted closed. And he's like, oh, dang, she's good, this bulky woman. The next day, the mom comes in and she's just kind of like not herself. Like Paul kind of points out, or the narrator points out too, that she is just kind of, you know, getting him ready for something. Paul is kind of oblivious. We're kind of oblivious, so we don't know what he's in for.
But not to cut you off, but like oblivious isn't the best word to describe that, because he notices her tension. Like he says that she's taught him how to observe things. Like, and even she can't hide from how tense she is right now, and she describes like she's getting his like semi-formal jacket, here, wear this clothes, and she's like being really attentive to him, and he can see that she's being more attentive than she actually is, or normally is rather, and that she's got this super tension in her interactions.
I would say he's acutely perceptive.
Yes, and they kind of
everything that's going on around.
And they kind of link that to this Bene Gesserit school of thinking, this art of, and I kind of got like the Sherlock Holmes art of observation, or like Monk or Psych, where like you notice minute things to give you evidence, and that's kind of the picture they're trying to paint with Paul, is that he notices very, very small details about people to make inferences about what they're thinking or why they're doing what they're doing.
So that same moment that you had that Sherlock Holmes or like Monk or Psych, I thought of Guardians of the Galaxy, the one with the antennas who can feel the emotions of people.
Yes.
That was my
Mantis?
Mantis. I would say that's the same, but he doesn't need to touch them like Mantis does. Like, he just can observe people and know what they're feeling.
But at the same time, and I don't want to cut you off too much, Lou. I'm going to... This is like the second time you've tried to start your point. But at the same time, as intelligent and socially aware as Paul is, at the same time he's described as somebody who, because he's excited for going on this journey that he knows he's going on, but he also doesn't feel like this, like I'm going to miss home because he doesn't have many friends. Maybe it's because his name is Paul in the future, but he does. I'm sorry. Of all the cool names, you named your kid Paul. In the future. Like, Maudib is a place.
We really like you, Paul, I promise.
No, Maudib is a manual.
I'm just saying.
It's the manual of Maudib.
But he is also, you have to keep in mind, a surprisingly social aware 15-year-old boy. So, yes, he is aware that something's wrong with his mom, but he cannot figure out why she is acting like this, which is where that oblivious nature of Paul comes from. So he's like, going through the motions of asking all these mental questions like, what's her problem? Like, what's she freaking out about? And then, like, up to the point where she is taking him to see this old witch woman, who he finds out later is the Mother Reverend.
Rhea.
And now the Mother Reverend she's also referenced as the Emperor's Truthsayer.
Yes.
Also a cool title.
Whatever the frick that means. I feel like we need one of those in America in 2021. At the very beginning.
I thought you meant like us three collectively, and I was like, we each have one. We're living with them.
True. Babe, I love you. No, so she's references the Emperor's Truthsayer, and we find out in this next chapter that her name is Reverend Mother.
Yes.
And her full name is Gaius Helen Mahayam. Did I say that correctly?
Got it perfect.
Nailed it.
He was making fun of us, in all fairness, listeners, right before we started recording. I can't wait to hear you guys butcher these names. So far, so good.
Because they're not going to get the next couple.
But alas, Lou, we have not.
You have not. You've done great, but
you've
gotten all the easy ones like Paul and Jessica.
Frank.
Kwisatz Haderach.
Oh yeah.
What is
hold
that?
Hold on. Don't say it. The Kwisatz Haderach.
You were actually really close. You said, it sounded like you said something inappropriate in the first syllable.
Kwisatz
Haderach.
Ooh.
Haderach. Kwisatz Haderach.
Yes.
And then okay, I couldn't help but think at one point, just to give everyone else kind of a look at, Paul is overhearing the conversation while he's quote unquote sleeping, but this old woman says, we'll see like how clever you are, because she realizes that he's awake listening. When I'm done with when the Gam Jabbar, is that right?
Yeah, gone, like you went somewhere. Gone,
yeah.
Jabbar.
Oh.
Yeah, she goes, we'll see, kind of what you're made of after you've dealt with my Gam Jabbar. And he is like up all night, because after that, my note is literally, what the fuck is a Gam Jabbar? And then the next line is, what is a Gam Jabbar, from Paul? I'm like, dude, we are on the same page.
Yeah.
Me and 15-year-old Paul.
No, here's the thing.
And I'm going to tell you.
I don't think that's what kept him up all night. The thing that kept him up all night was she said, sleep well, you sly little rascal.
Yeah. That would creep
And
me
that
out.
just gave me the heebie. I was like, oh, ew.
That's an old lady thing.
Stop it, old woman. Just
So
go
I
away.
had a note about the ganja bar. I can't remember its exact title, but there's a movie trope I think it's called like Tchaikovsky's pistol or gun or something like that.
Oh.
And
I know exactly what you're talking
it's the
about.
idea, whatever the name is. It's the idea is like you introduce a weapon in the first act to be used in the third act. So when you find out what a ganja bar is while Paul is taking this test with Mother Reverend, and she's testing him Chekhov's pistol.
Chekhov's gun.
Chekhov's
Yep,
gun.
Chekhov's gun.
I knew it was some kind of like Eastern European name. Anyway, so in this test, Mother Reverend is testing Paul, and I am kind of roundabout saying here, but she's testing if he's human. And you kind of get the deeper meaning of this book, or a deeper theme in this book of like human and people and consciousness, and it all kind of clicks as to like the dream that Matt was talking about earlier. And
So what do you mean by human there?
exactly. So we get to this understanding that this world is divided or has been manipulated by AI and machines. And you got to remember, like Sean said at the beginning of the podcast, like you got to think about the time frame when he wrote this. It was 1950s, 60s. Like the world was just getting used to these machines. And in the book, they describe that machines are used to control people, to enslave people, because man thought that he could, make machines to make his life easier. But then, other people would make more machines to control those people. So, fast forward thousands of years, and now you have these tests where people, just because you're a person doesn't mean you're human. And this test that Paul's about to go through, which is more or less just like a pain test. He gets put in front of this box, this little green mysterious box, and he sticks his hand in it, and Mother Reverend tells him to stick his hand in it, and he does, and he can feel pain of some sort. Like he describes it at first as like your hand just fell asleep, and all of a sudden Mother Reverend puts the knife, which she calls gun gabar, on his throat and says, if you move your hand, you will die. And
It was a poison
yes,
knife, though.
the knife was poisoned. And she goes into this great detail, and I'm going all about the roundabout way to describe that. They put so much detail into this knife that it needs to be shown later in the book. And I will make the first prediction of the podcast for this season and say the gun gabar knife is used to kill some kind of antagonist.
Oh,
man. So
wow, so you're extrapolating on Chekhov's gun,
Yes,
huh?
I'm
Okay.
going to use
He's
You're
Chekhov's.
going-
saying it's not just the first and second act. You're saying it's going to be like the 15th act that Chekhov's gun's going to be used.
I don't know how you would define the acts yet in this book, but literally, readers, they put so much detail into this knife and how slender and how quickly she brought it out and how a single drop from his poison could kill him. And it was just like, you're lining it up. But I was bought
well, that's
in.
true. That's good.
It's not a knife. It says it's a needle with a drop of poison on its tip.
a needle.
Yeah, and then she goes into like educating Paul on like, oh, somebody in your standing must know the different types of poisons. So not only does she talk about how hype this needle is, she's talking about how good the poison is at the end. And this is a really cool part because we're talking about that. What last book we talked about what is human or normal and what is a monster. And in this case, she's talking about what is human and what is an animal. So she holds it and she talks about the poison as being something that could kill an animal. And Paul is offended. He's like, he's got his hand in this box. And I think this is right before it actually starts hurting him, where he's just like, what, do you think I'm an animal? And she's just like, we're about to find out. And he's like, oh my God. So I'm like, Zoik Scoob. Mom is nervous. She's not even in the room. Paul's nervous. Fuck, I'm nervous. What? What is this? What is going on? And then that
my
is
notes.
when,
What's in the box?
What's in the box? Yeah, I put that in all caps. But Paul has no problem just like trusting. And part of me thought that this is something a 15-year-old would do. Like, okay, whatever. This is your test you have for me. I'll put my hand in this stupid box. Right. And it looked eerie. Like even the box being described was like, it was so like, it's like abysmal looking into the box. You couldn't see inside of it. but it was like black slot open for your hand. And he just goes ahead, puts his hand in there, ready to go.
To be clear, reader or listener, I'm sorry. The test is Paul has to put his hand in this box, and then the Reverend Mother puts a poison needle to his neck, and she says, if you pull your hand out, I will poke you with this needle and you will die. And this box gets increasingly more painful. And the idea here is to test if he is truly a human or if he is simply a reactionary animal. Meaning, and they have a quote in here, an animal will chew their leg off in order to escape from a trap. But a human will feign death in order to protect their species.
Yeah.
They'll feign death in the trap and then wait for the hunter to come to them in order to protect their species. So that's what she says, and then she lets the test go on. And before this test starts, she said, he's trying to like kind of not quite weasel his way out of it, but he's like, you're not going to kill me. Like, my mother's literally right outside and I'm a duke's son. Like, you can't just kill me. She's like, your mother's guarding the door for this test. She's been through it. And in fact, a bunch of other people have. And no man-child, and I had a note here that said man-child just means boy. But no man-child has, like, it's rare that we give this test to man-children.
And you learn that's because this test is this Bene Gesserit test, and the Bene Gesserits are supposed to only be women. And it's supposed to be this test that, and another quote I pulled from was, we Bene Gesserits sift people to find the humans. And I thought that was cool because it's saying that people, just because you're a person doesn't mean you're human. And it shows that like his mother is the dedication she has to this school of thought. I'm not really sure how to describe it. Like, it's almost like a religion. Cult. It's called. Yeah.
I had another question for you guys, though, because I read this a few times and wasn't sure if this is why Paul was so willing to put his hand in the box. There's this reference to a capital V voice. They talk about the voice.
I did hear that too.
And it's brought up, I think, twice. Once during the test or before the test, and then once after the test with Jessica in the room. Like something along the lines of he has to learn the voice. Because after she says, put your hand in the box, he mentions something like she must have the voice because he just did it. And I'm like, is that like mind control? Because that is awesome. Like,
I felt like that was a Star Wars kind of reference. Like, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first thought was to hear you two in my head saying, Lou, put on your podcast voice.
Yeah.
Alas.
So then I had this like burning thought, this question, because I think his right hand was in the box. I'm like, I really hope this dude's a lefty, because if he loses this hand, he is doomed. Like the whole time I'm like, they never specified if he what is his dominant hand.
Oh my gosh.
Matt, it's the future. This guy's named Paul. He doesn't have a dominant hand. He uses whatever hand suits him that day.
But I too had a theory, because I'm not saying I'm going to be disappointed by the story just because all the hype that has been put on this book and this author, in this genre in general. But I did have a really weird theory, and this is what it is. I'm telling you now, obviously.
Is this a prediction?
There's a lot of hype here.
Prediction noise here?
This is, yes, I think this is prediction. What if Paul is actually in a coma because the needle actually stuck his neck and he passed out? It was animal poison, so it wasn't strong enough to kill a human, but it puts him in a coma. And instead of actually going through all the motions in this book, he is instead knocked out on the floor in that room with his hand in the box. What? I know that would be it'd be so disappointing. Like, he goes through all this cool stuff and like all of his dreams. He's just stuck in this loop.
It's just a coma.
But
that would be dumb.
I thought like,
that's
what?
Literally like Archer season. Do you guys watch Archer at all?
I forget what season.
It's like season like 7, 8, and 9 are just him in a coma, and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
No, that was dumb. What is canon if not, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
I feel like more people would be like, no, this book sucks. Like, because if that was the fate of Paul, like he just got knocked out by animal poison, this book would blow, dude. Like I had high hopes for this kid.
I feel like they put it all on the table real quick, and they said the theme of this saga, right? Not just the saga, is what makes you human?
Yeah.
Because you could be a person but still not be human.
Yes, that I agree completely.
Yeah,
And to continue on with the rest of this section, let's just stick to calling them sections. We'll like the little trailer bits.
Yeah.
We'll call them sections. He continues on to the test, and to the point where Mother Reverend finally says, "Okay, that's enough," and she's kind of shocked. She kind of admits that like she even pushed him a little too far in this test of pain and trying to figure out, will he just react? And he takes his hand out, and it's completely fine. He describes that he was expecting to see a charred remnants of bone and flesh, but it's completely
She
fine.
says, I must have wanted you to fail.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, Sean. And you get a little bit more information about the Bene Gesserit school, cult. Let's stick with cult. And she kind of starts teasing Paul with some information about it, and then he kind of calls her hand and says that it's a school about politics, and she's kind of like taken aback, like, how did you know that? And at this point his mother's back in the room with him, and she goes, I have never told him that. And you kind of get this sense that Paul is starting to put a couple pieces together, maybe from his training from his mom that we haven't read about, and the dealings he's had with Reverend Mother. And you learn about a space guild as well, which I thought was pretty cool. That
these whole next like 4 pages are literally just all highlighted, because I was like, it's all important.
That's literally this whole chapter. It's just exposition dump. And the Space Guild teaches mathematics, and we learn later that they have a monopoly on space travel.
It's lamest like religion. If you had to choose, dude, I'm putting my hand in the box every time. I'm not an entire religion following based on mathematics.
Math? Hold on. Time out.
Hold on. Yeah.
Time out, because I want to show you guys this. No, seriously, time out real quick.
Oh, God.
Runs away from microphone.
Runs away. Listener, we have no
I
idea.
literally got a hat in today that
says math. Oh, my gosh.
Literally today.
Okay, so
but
this
that's not
furthers
fair.
my point here.
That's not fair, because that is both politics and math.
Okay, so that's exactly what I wanted to get into. I think that politics has been... Ooh, this is going to be a hot take. I think politics today has been tainted by our post-60s understanding of politics. So...
This is going to have to go in bonus footage.
all of the terrible things that happened past the 60s, like, the Bay of Pigs, the Iran-Contra, like, all of the terrible... literally all of the terrible things that we've done that makes politics such a word that makes everybody go, huh?
That's true.
But back in the 50s, politics was like, okay, this is how we get things done. This is the art of literally getting
compromise.
things done. I hate to say the art of the deal, but
compromise
of influence, compromise, of power, of struggle, all of these different things for bettering the world that we live in. And that's what politics to me is supposed to mean in this book, not the politics that our knee-jerk gut reaction gives us.
See, I don't get that feeling from this book, but go ahead, Matt.
No, I kind of agree with you, Lou, because they kind of are drawing a line between that understanding, because they're kind of saying that this mathematical approach to running a civilization, it's still politics, but they're taking a mathematic approach where they are taking we are sifting through the sands to look for the diamonds in the rough to create a civilization of just like these humans, not the machines. Like we need to separate ourselves from that aspect of the politics. So everyone's kind of there's this undertone of the politics in the background. What I had a real big problem, and Lou, I'm going to depend on you and Sean for this. They're talking about this. You're going to have to help me out here. The Bene Gesserit.
Hold on, I got it written down. Hold on.
Just they're following.
Bene Gesserit. Bene Gesserit.
Okay, I'm going to remember that at some point. But they're talking about this, that Paul might be pretty much the Neo of this book. Like he might be the one. He is a son born of all of these regularly born women, that his mom was supposed to have a girl, but she took the risk on him. So I was like questioning, okay, is she deciding? She decided to have a boy? That an option?
It definitely made that book made it sound like she picked to have a boy.
But this following, they are talking about how women are able to like trace kind of like the truth in the history of all women, but that there is this one who is that weird name, the Kwisatz Haderach, or whatever it is.
Kwisatz Haderach.
Who is apparently this like mythological man who can take this essence, which is essentially what we're going to get into in the second chapter. But it was mentioned in the first one. It's called like melange.
No, that's a drug.
Yeah, that was a drug.
That's not the spice.
The spices are the drugs. Yeah, it is crazy. This world is nuts.
Okay, so
they're
controlled by the CHOAM, the CHOAM.
The CHOAM company. I wrote it as CHOEN. Is that how it's spelled?
Before we move on
CHOAM.
to that, because that's going to come up a lot in the second little section, but do the women take that spice and know all the truth in history? This kind of sounds like a limitless pill that the women take, and they just have this understanding of all women in the past, but there's only one man who can take it and understand all of civilization, the truth
that's literally
humanity.
That's the feel that I got. Yeah.
Okay, because that's literally the way I interpret it, is that there is truth, but that women are only capable of seeing the truth in the history of women. But there is one
of this lineage, as they describe it, because like they say these Bene Gesserits do selective breeding. Like Mother Reverend talks about how she's manipulated certain people to breed with other people so that they can keep the bloodlines pure. But that's why Jessica and Paul are so different, because Jessica broke that lineage mold by having Paul. She was supposed to sleep with the Duke, like that was normal, but she was supposed to birth a girl so that she could continue this Bene Gesserit's thing. And they're trying to see if this prophecy of this God, I can't say it. Sean, say it.
Kwisatz Haderach.
That is Paul. If Paul fills that prophecy, and this first test that Mother Reverend put him through is a good indication of that, but she's still skeptical.
Yeah, but I think she just hates Paul, to be honest.
That
too.
Two things real quick.
One.
Paul is number one. Paul is, in biblical terms, Paul was the disciple that Jesus chose. He said, "On this rock I will build my church." Paul, you're the quote unquote the chosen one, right? You are the one designated to carry on for me.
Well, spoiler alert, Paul's the chosen one.
So that's kidding. Why the biblical theme is like getting tied back in here, for me at least. Mm-hmm. I thought that was fascinating that got tied in.
Did you hear how close he was to interesting?
He was really close there.
Damn it!
And I'm
trying so hard.
There's a lot of those biblical elements which I got as well, but there's a lot of those, like I got a lot of Lion King vibes, especially after sections 2 and 3 when I'm putting things together of like, you know, at first you're understanding, oh, he's technically like this prince type kid. He's the son of a duke, but also son of a mistress, but he has the heir to this planet, and technically he's going to inherit it when his dad essentially gets zonked. So he is like preparing for that responsibility, but he's a 15-year-old boy. So not that he's going to meet like a Timon and Pumbaa, but I'm sure he's going to meet this is another prediction I had. He's going to meet, and I really hope that it's the Master of Assassins is like his combined Timon and Pumbaa character that like cool. Shows him the ropes on how to be a ruler. Like that'd be so sweet. But I think that he's going to get put in a position where he is going to have to figure out how to lead, but as we read in chapter 2, that is going to get complicated. It's not as dry or cut and dry as The
What was
witch
your
is
second-
making it seem.
What was your second
Yeah.
thing, Sean?
Yeah, go ahead.
The second thing that I wanted to bring into this was, and so going back to the first thing, hold on real quick. Matt, you're right. They talk about a Butlerian jihad, like Butler jihad, in the Orange Catholic Bible.
I noted
and
that too.
They had this really cool highlight here. The OC Bible, the Orange Catholic Bible, said, "Thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind." And so he's like, they're talking about this, but this was kind of, to me, this harkened back to iRobot, and like there's the 3 rules of robotics, right? You can't harm a human, and so on and so forth. So that was really cool. But on the second part here, they get into the genetics portion of this, right? What is a human? And this, I think this was right around the time that like genetics was really kicking off, and the idea of intelligent design, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that we could influence the design of our future offspring, so to speak, and the idea that if we change them enough, they will no longer be human.
And it's about at this cliff we decided to leave you hanging. But don't worry, we'll be back for you soon. Maybe. Anyway, we can't even begin to thank you enough for joining us for this episode of Hearth Bound. If you want to forever have the majestic mental image of us ruined and washed from your minds, follow us at Hearthbound Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can catch up on all of our announcements, be the second to know about episode drops, and just talk nerdy to us. And no, you didn't hear me wrong. Our patrons are the first to know everything that goes on before anybody else. And if you want to be a patron like Leah, Leslie, or Mike, have an awesome shout out written about you, or just have a thing for stickers, even though you never know where to put them, join one of our Patreon guilds. We appreciate any of the support that comes our way and have a little something for everybody. So if that sounds like it would scratch your itch, hit us up on patreon.com/Hearthbound Podcast for the details. Finally, if you enjoyed what you heard here today, have some thoughts on how we can improve, or just feel like making our day, make sure you rate the show and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. And who knows, we might be inclined to send you a little something for doing it. Like stickers and bookmarks, you heathens. Jeez. Anyway, thanks again for joining us around the hearth, but until we meet again, cheers, and see you in the next episode of Hearthbound.